In today's video, we're going to talk about the Flash movie, because the Flash movie you would have seen by the time I post this video ended very different, the post-credit was very different, and it was visually very noticeable to even the average cinema or theatre goer. They chopped this movie up so much. And in yesterday's video, I did like the Flash movie. Like I said, it's not the most amazing movie ever, but it is a good movie. But it could have been so much better. And we don't really know who's to blame here. Is it James Gunn and Pete Safran taking over? Is it DC Studios being formed? Is it Walter Hamada leaving? There's so many different factors. And then you got to factor in the fact this movie was in production for over 7 years, 4 different directors before Andy Muschietti actually came in. The movie actually did principal photography in 2021. This is why the poor CGI in this movie, it's not actually acceptable. It's really not. This movie wrapped in 2021. Okay, cool. In 2022, they changed some stuff. They had some VFX photography. They had only 1 day of pickup shots. 2023, they did some other pickup shots, and then they added scenes here and there. So they've had over 2 years, and it's the same VFX studio that worked on Zack Snyder's Justice League. So when Snyder fanboys want to hate on this movie for poor CGI, literally the same company that worked on the Zack Snyder Justice League. Whose fault is it? It's most likely the budget's fault, but is it? This movie reportedly cost over $350 million worth of marketing budget. Who is to blame? We don't know. So yo, what is freaking good, YouTube? Wish you here. If you are new around here, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know why you wouldn't. Check us out on Instagram at WishYou to see the beautiful face behind the beautiful voice, and check us out on Twitter, WishYouG. Right, let's get into this movie. So, as we know, they were setting up Michael Keaton to take over, to be the mentor for Batgirl. He was going to appear in Aquaman 2, etc. So the ending we got, careful for spoilers, although it'll be in title. So the ending we got, it was the most random, condescending, surprising ending for some people, at least when I watched it, because they were like, freaking hell, because if you don't follow like spoiler channels or leaks and stuff like this, you would have no idea that randomly George Clooney was going to appear until you started hearing him and Barry on the phone. So at the end of the movie, after Barry Allen finally accepted that Ebar Thorne Reverse Flash had to kill his mother, and that was the biggest thing. I kept getting told there was a cut where the Reverse Flash was there, or at least you would get to see the death scene with him there. We didn't get to see any of that. The only thing we got to see is the can of tomato soup being changed to the top shelf, and that was consistent on everything. So Barry's already saved the day by allowing his mother to be killed, because that is a set point in time. So what originally was supposed to happen is they filmed this scene in London. Sasha Calle's Supergirl was in London. Literally the scene was in public. So a lot of people watching this movie were like, hang on a minute. They literally filmed Supergirl, Sasha Calle, Kara Zor-El, Michael Keaton outside the court, but they changed it, and then somehow Clooney ended up in the final cut. This scene rubbed up a lot of people the wrong way because no one cares for George Clooney. So in both versions, Henry Allen was going to be exonerated, and it looks like Barry got his happy ending. The same Mercedes-Benz rocked up Barry Allen thinking it's going to be Batfleck, Ben Affleck, Bruce Wayne emerged to warn his fellow hero not to toy with time. But it was supposed to be Michael Keaton who stepped out this time. And in London, I remember they had a huge set piece there where you could see Sasha Calle on the ropes up in the air. She was going to fly in. But no, we got the George Clooney scene, didn't we? So Barry is perplexed, as putting the can back should have made things right. Neither knows what they're doing there, but a new DC extended universe has clearly been created where they exist in place of Batfleck and Henry Cavill's Superman. With that, the film ends, and then there's the final tease. And the final tease was going to be really cool. It would have hyped up a lot of people. Now, I don't know whose fault this is. It's most likely had interference with the studio, because the original ending was 10 times better, if you ask me. But it was going to set up Crisis to come. And yes, that could insinuate the Snyderverse is going to be restored. But realistically, the way the director's talking about this movie, he's almost saying Batfleck is coming back, Keaton's coming back, Sasha Calle is coming back. Even though in this movie, Sasha Calle's Supergirl died, Michael Keaton died. And this movie predominantly tells you that Arthur Curry Aquaman is a dog in the universe where Barry 2 was from. So did he understand the concept of a multiverse? No. Batman is a different person in every universe. But when the director's talking about Sasha Calle's Supergirl returning, he's talking about Sasha Calle's Supergirl. He's not talking about anyone else. So I think they took a big L here. I think they worried about the ending and then gave us a horse potato ending. I mean, I did like the movie, but what was they were setting up was going to be so much better. So Jason Momoa was going to make an appearance in the post-credit scene, which still did happen. This still actually happened, but it was different. So Barry is helping a drunk Arthur Curry leave the bar that we've seen, racing home to grab something that can sober his fellow superhero up. There's suddenly a distress call coming through on the Scarlet Speedster's supercomputer. He watches it. It's a video message from Ben Affleck Batman. He pleads with the Flash to help him and makes it very clear he needs help. The timeline has broken. Reality is broken. Almost like a reverse BVS when Ezra Miller came through and said, am I too soon? Am I too soon? Lois is the key. Lois is the key. So it's actually unclear where this was going to go, but it was essentially going to be setting up Crisis on Infinite Earth in the future. And they still could have done that. And then there was obviously also other rumors that there was a scene right at the end setting up the Justice League's next mission with Henry Cavill Superman, with Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. They wasted her appearance at the start of the movie. It literally made no sense. It wasn't really funny. Arthur Curry, literally the whole Justice League was going to be there. Everyone was going to be in this scene. So they did mess the ending up for realistically no reason, because what they did set up confused a lot of the general audience. Because okay, so Barry's back in his own timeline, but because he changed something, it still had the ripple effect on time and still changed something up. So it is interesting how the overall villain of the movie was the Black Flash, or was it, well, they called it Dark Flash, but it was essentially the storyline they used in the CW show with Grant Gustin. It was essentially, I am the future Flash, I am Savitar. And it was really bad because Grant Gustin and Ezra Miller's cameo during Crisis on the CW crossover was literally done whilst they were editing it. It was a last minute thing. And for Andy Muschietti to come out and be like, yo, they just didn't have time. Get out of here. Of course they had time. He could have green screened it. With all the cameos that have been done via green screen, there is literally no excuse for that not happening. And you could tell that a lot of this movie was all over the place because of the amount of different cuts and different edits. And it is interesting that they had the Man of Steel vibe, but they didn't show you Martian Manhunter, who years later was confirmed to be in Man of Steel. They really did cut out a lot. But the main narrative was still fairly similar. But it did seem like they did chop a lot out, realistically. And sure, they did canonize the Zack Snyder's Justice League movie. It is canon, because what Batfleck referred to was the moment in the Snyder Cut when Barry Allen went back in time for one moment. It's probably the most iconic scene in that movie, the Colossic moment. So it is a Snyderverse movie. So I don't understand how some people are like, yo, the Snyderverse, it's dead, it's buried. I mean, it's there if they want to use it. That's the whole idea of the multiverse and the Elseworld studios, if you like, because you got the Batman 2, you got Joker 2 with Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. So I just wanted to make a little video because the original ending, the original post-credit scene was literally going to go somewhere. The post-credit scene we've got, it's left it really ambiguous. James Gunn has annoyed a lot of people because it's condescending. It's like, yeah, Blue Beetle is the first DCU character. Doesn't mean you're going to keep the actor around, does it, though? You're going to have a real hard time marketing Blue Beetle because no one really cares for the Flash. And how are you going to get normies to care for Blue Beetle? Okay, yeah, Blue Beetle is a really cool character if you play Injustice or if you've watched Young Justice animated series, etc. But realistically, he's like, yeah, first character is Blue Beetle, but the first movie is Superman Legacy. So he's almost discrediting Aquaman 2, which that banged $1 billion. Not many DC or Marvel movies have banged $1 billion recently. So it's almost like he's burying these movies already, and it's almost like they've already wrote it off. Well, they can't physically write anything off if it gets released. But it's almost like they don't care if these movies do well or not. As I said before, the reason I was so hypercritical on the way they marketed the movie was because it was very misleading, but it wasn't, because the movie was literally, they showed you the ending scene literally in the trailer. The only caveat is they did hyperbolic marketing saying, oh, it's the greatest comic book movie ever. It's not even the best comic book movie this summer, but it's still pretty good. Across the Spideyverse, in my humble opinion, is the best comic book movie this summer. But honestly, I think Christopher Nolan's movie is going to be the best movie of the summer. So that's the original ending, the original post-credit. They didn't change that much of everything else, but it looked like they did. The Henry Cavill scene. I mean, Henry Cavill was in the movie, sure, but he was supposed to be in the Speed Force scene and visually talking and stuff. He was technically in the movie because of the Justice League scene. I know a lot of people were gonna, yo, Walsh, you lied. No, I didn't lie. He's actually in that scene. He was in the movie. Visual representation of him. You could see his face. You could see him, so he was in it. So that's the original ending and original post-credit scene. They could have still stuck to that realistically. They could have done. But obviously, it's not going anywhere realistically because they're not using George Clooney either. So having George Clooney step in this new universe will have people thinking, is George Clooney the new Batman? Or is the Batman in this universe not Bruce Wayne? Because at the end, he's like, Barry, are you confused? No one's supposed to know who Batman is. Very confusing ending because you don't know what DC Studios is thinking. It's not actually confusing from a narrative storyline point of view because, to be honest, it's a very basic movie. But where you've kind of got to guess what the hell James Gunn's doing. Now, I'm going to support it because I think he is a solid director. He's very good at writing stuff, but is he good of keeping together a cohesive universe? We don't know because he only did the Guardian stuff, and that was only really canon to itself. Obviously, it had a agency stuff to Infinity War and the other Avengers movies, sure, but we don't know. James Gunn is a rookie. He's never done this kind of stuff. He's a director, he's a writer, sure, but he's never been ahead of a studio before. But I'm sure he will or would have already got advice from his boy, Kevin Feige. So that's the original ending, original post-credit. It will annoy a lot of people because even the normies wanted to see Darkseid ready the Armada, and setting up a crisis years down the road would have got you closer to that. So like always, guys, check us out on Instagram at WhooshJu. Check us out on Twitter, WhooshJuG, and I will catch you in another video very soon. Catch you later.